1777, on top of having his big stories, but actually a lot of Marie-Antoinette fans. In this new episode of the Versailles Chronicles, we are going to continue to explore the secret memoirs of le Duc de Lauzun, but specifically the pages which have triggered the most comments, the most blames, the most criticism, the pages related to Marie-Antoinette. We will see what were these critics, what were the blames. We will also join on board on the horses races, as they were both passionate about horses, and we will see exactly what were the nature of her feelings for him and what were the facts. Versailles is a merciless jungle, and any gentleman who gets too close to the Queen and receives too many signs of care and interest from her would instantly make for himself a lot of ferocious enemies. And le Duc de Lauzun had a lot of enemies. First, he is the nephew of the former Minister of the Foreign Affairs under Louis XV. He was an officer, a diplomat, a spy. He had a lot of success both in his work and with women. And he is also a duke, and he received a lot of interest from the Queen. He has a lot of enemies at Versailles. He has all the Polignac against him. And la Comtesse Jules de Polignac is starting to be a very close friend from Marie-Antoinette. So this one, she's a ferocious lady. There is also le Duc de Besenval, who belongs to her close circle. Now, how did they meet and how Marie-Antoinette noticed Lauzun? The last time we left the Duc de Lauzun, it was after his breakup with Lady Barrymore in 1775, but we need to go back a little earlier. They will start to become closer because of horses and horses races which had just started in France, in Paris. And it happens that le Duc de Lauzun had two racing stables, one in England, in Haymarket, and one in Paris. And the very first race will start in Paris at La Plaine des Sablons, which was used for horses races, on March 9, 1775. There are only 4 teams at this time, but it's the beginning. There is le Duc de Lauzun and le Comte d'Artois and le Duc de Chartres, and there will be a few other teams which will grow afterwards. But it is le Duc de Lauzun's horse and his jockey who will win the prize for the very first race. Lauzun and all his friends have a pretty English and casual, relaxed, neglected style when they go to see these races, even in front of the Queen. And le Comte d'Artois, that you have already seen, he was dating Lady Barrymore at the same time as le Duc de Lauzun. And le Comte d'Artois is the brother of the king. He also has a racing stable, and he is an absolute caricature. He makes the most ridiculous excessive demonstration of joy when he wins. He runs in every direction. He also mingled with the crowd to encourage and to yell at his jockeys. Well, the noise all these young gentlemen of the court makes when they see these horses coming in front of them and to encourage and motivate them is just unbelievable. And it also happens that the Duc de Lauzun's horses win very often. So this passion he had with Marie-Antoinette for horses, which of course she couldn't share with her husband, the king, who had no interest whatsoever for all these things, put them a little closer, and they started to spend more time together, both in the races and also when they were going hunting and riding, when they were going hunting together. Now, before we listen to the Duc de Lauzun talking about these races, these horses, and Marie-Antoinette, You have to remember he's writing his memoirs to conquer a lady, a marquise he's passionately in love with, and his memoirs were never meant to be published, to be public, to be seen by a large audience. So he can brag as much as he wants because after all he feels good about himself and he wants to show to this woman a pretty positive image of himself. But it can explain a bit sometimes the tone he takes.
Le commencement du printemps ramena les courses. J'avais beaucoup de chevaux engagés pour lesquels la reine pariait toujours, quoique dans sa société on le trouva mauvais. Dans les premiers jours d'avril, je fis courir un cheval contre un de ceux de Monsieur le Duc de Chartres, pour une somme fort considérable, beaucoup trop sans doute. La reine s'en occupa beaucoup, vint à la course et me dit « J'ai tant de peur que si vous perdez, je crois que je pleurerai. » Cela fut remarqué et blâmé. Mon cheval gagna assez facilement et le public qui m'aimait mieux que Monsieur le Duc de Chartres m'applaudit longtemps. La reine en parut transportée de joie. J'eus toute la peine du monde à l'empêcher d'avoir des chevaux de course et à monter à cheval à l'anglaise. Ce fut, je crois, la plus grande preuve de mon crédit sur elle.
Le Duc de Lauzun was not only playing with his horses and courting women, he had actually a lot of ambition. He wanted to play a big part in the foreign affairs and international scene in Europe, and he dreamed Marie-Antoinette as a big, powerful queen. And for that, on his own behalf, he contacted Catherine II of Russia, and he proposed her a big project, a big plan, an alliance between France and Russia against the rest of Europe. Catherine II of Russia was actually delighted about the project. He just had to reveal the project to Marie-Antoinette. And when he did, he realized Marie-Antoinette was not the queen he thought she was and she could be. She was in her early 20s. She was gambling a lot, going to horses races, wanted to have fun. She was not the queen who could really lead Europe or have a powerful part with the Empress of Russia. And when she revealed his plan, she freaked out. She was very scared. She said she was about to think about the project, but what happened is she told the plan, she told that to everybody around her, so he started to be heard, and she also revealed the plan to the king himself. And here Duc de Lauzun realized she was not very smart and a bit dangerous, because here he was pretty much guilty of the crime of lèse-majesté against the King Louis XVI. And Marie-Antoinette didn't think about that. So when the Empress Catherine II heard that le Duc de Lauzun might be in trouble and possibly go to jail because of this plan they had together, she offered him to lead a big chunk of her army, to lead all the Tatar section of her armies. And it was such a honor for him to have the chance and the possibility to go in Russia and to help Catherine II. He was pretty tempted because in France right now, he was really in danger of finishing in jail, possibly death penalty for treason. There is no doubt he was under the charm of Marie-Antoinette because she was the most powerful woman in France, of course. She was captivating. She was not pretty, and he told that in little later in his memoirs when he will meet a beautiful young English lady who will become his mistress, and he said that she looked very much like Marie-Antoinette but in pretty. It also has to be said that Catherine II of Russia was 46 years old at the time. Le Duc de Lauzun was 28 years old. He was in Poland before he started all these horses races and starting to get a little closer to Marie-Antoinette. He had a bad breakup with a Polish princess who was also dating a Russian ambassador. So it's the reason Catherine II of Russia heard a lot about le Duc de Lauzun and his feminine conquest, and she was pretty intrigued. So she was quite delighted to have le Duc de Lauzun coming to Russia, helping her with her army, and she was pretty curious about him. So if Marie-Antoinette was not interested, it was not a problem, Catherine II was. And even if the Russian plan didn't go anywhere, Marie-Antoinette continued to show a lot of care and a lot of interest for the Duc de Lauzun, which was a little embarrassing and complicated for him because he had a lot of gossip, he had all his enemies to deal with. This is what he says about the position of Marie-Antoinette at this time in 1775.
Elle sortait rarement sans moi, ne me permettant pas de quitter la cour, me faisait toujours placer près d'elle au jeu, me parlait sans cesse, venait tous les soirs chez Madame de Guéménée, marquait de l'humeur lorsqu'il y avait assez de monde pour gêner l'occupation où elle était presque toujours de moi. Il était impossible qu'une telle conduite ne fût pas remarquée.
This is also the reason he started this love affair with Lady Barrymore that we have seen in the first episode to try to hide a bit all this gossip that was spreading in Versailles at the court, to try to silence all his enemies, and he made sure that this relationship with Lady Barrymore was very public for this reason. Of course, Marie-Antoinette couldn't help being extremely rude to Lady Barrymore every time she saw her, as she had been with all his mistresses, and we have some proof of that. It just happened that it was the ladies he was dating that she seemed to really especially hate. The pages in his memoirs which received the most criticism, blame and comments were the pages where he describes what happened between him and Marie-Antoinette when he suggested he could join Catherine II of Russia and leave France forever.
Ses yeux étaient remplis de larmes. Touchée moi-même jusqu'au fond du cœur, je me jetais à ses pieds. Que ma vie ne peut-elle payer tant de bonté, une si généreuse sensibilité? Elle me tendit la main, je la baisai plusieurs fois avec ardeur, sans changer de posture. Elle se pencha vers moi avec beaucoup de tendresse. Elle était dans mes bras lorsque je me relevai. Je la serrai contre mon cœur qui était fortement ému. Elle rougit, mais je ne vis point de colère dans ses yeux. « Eh bien, reprit-elle en s'éloignant, n'obtiendrai-je rien? N'êtes-vous pas tout pour moi? Vous êtes ma reine, vous êtes la reine de France. » Ses regards semblaient me demander un autre titre. Je fus tentée de jouir du bonheur qui paraissait s'offrir. Deux réflexions me retinrent. Je n'ai jamais voulu devoir à une femme un instant dont elle pût se repentir, et je n'eusse pu supporter l'idée que Madame Czartoryska se crût sacrifiée à l'ambition. Je me remis donc assez promptement. « Allez-vous-en, me dit-elle. Cette conversation a duré assez et n'a peut-être été que trop remarquée. » Je fis une profonde révérence et me retirai.
Madame Campan, in her memoirs, said that Marie-Antoinette didn't have any feeling, any interest whatsoever for the Duc de Lauzun, and she mentions two scenes. A scene he talks about in his memoir which features a feather, a beautiful feather he had at his helmet, and that received compliments from Marie-Antoinette, and he gave her the feather. Well, it's not really a big story or anything, but Madame Campan wanted to show that it was nothing at all. He had imagined everything, and she was actually very embarrassed by it. And Madame Campan, of course, is the lady in waiting of Marie-Antoinette. She's not like a witness of everything. She never joined them at the races. She's not with them when they are together in the room. She just was not always with them at all. She hears things from far, and she concludes things, she assumes things from what she hears. And the second scene is she heard Marie-Antoinette say, opening the door, Monsieur dehors, Monsieur out of here. And he He elongated this scene in his own memoir, saying what happened before, and she didn't only say that. She said a lot of things, and she said, people are going to notice what happens, please go away, so that it's quiet down a bit. It's the scene where she was really in tears and didn't want him to leave and all that. So this is what Madame Campan said, saying that he was a liar. He created all these things to make the interest on him and make people think that she was passionately in love with him. And the other lady who talks about him is la Baronne de Berkisch. We are going to revisit her memoirs at some point. She is a wonderful lady, an Alsatian lady who grew up in this part between Germany and France and had a bit of both of German and French culture. In her memoirs, which also take place during the Louis XVI era until the Revolution, she talks a lot about herself, what she does and everything, and also about what she hears, the stories she hears. So she repeats a lot of gossips, a lot of stories about le Duc de Lauzun. She repeats a story which has been made from scratch by les Polignac, including la Comtesse Jules de Polignac, Marie-Antoinette's best friend, to really compromise him, to show him in the most humiliating light possible. And this scene is so extreme, is so unbelievable that it's impossible it happened. When you study a bit the character, and the historians have done it, when you see what he has written and all the documents which have been kept in the archives, and his memoirs and all the letters of his friends and people who actually really knew him, it just doesn't make sense. So the scene was simply that he was dressed as a page, would have followed Marie-Antoinette everywhere without having her attention at all, slept in front of her door, and the next day he would have put a knee on the ground as she was coming out of a carriage, suggested that she could use her other knee as a little step to go out from the carriage. Marie-Antoinette would have said to another page, "Fie this man, he's not even able to open a carriage door properly." That was the scene which should have convinced you that Marie-Antoinette didn't care at all for the Duc de Lauzun, that she couldn't even see him or all that. It's just ridiculous. The facts we know is that she gave him a lot of charges, a lot of titles. She gave him a sword. She spent a lot of time with him. She always had him next to her at the gambling table. So there were a lot of signs that she definitely had an interest. She was married to the king, who was really not exciting. She was not in love with him. It was just the king. And she had this man dressed in white, in this beautiful uniform, who was really capturing the attention of everyone around him. He was really trendy at the time at the court. Many events will make him change a bit from a very fashionable man to someone a bit more reasonable at the middle of his life, but at this time he's really this example of young gentleman at Versailles. She definitely had an interest for le Duc de Lauzun. There is absolutely no doubt of that, even if la Baronne de Berkisch repeats her stories. And what is interesting is that these stories I mentioned, and you could think, well, nobody really could pay attention to these stories, but actually a lot of Marie-Antoinette fans to this day, the thing is the truth. They are really condemning le Duc de Lauzun, not really knowing his life, not really understanding the part he played in many moments of history, not only with Marie-Antoinette, but with the Independence War, during the Revolution. He was not only this, just like la Baronne de Berkisch described him, a man who was in rapture in front of Marie-Antoinette and would have done anything for her, even dressed like a page. In 1777, on top of having his big alliance with Russia, with Catherine II of Russia, failing, having Marie-Antoinette spread the news that he was almost guilty of a big crime of lèse-majesté against the king, and having the threat of ending his days at La Bastille, an interesting piece of news came to him. He is in debt. Now, don't worry, nothing to make a fuss about. He is 1,500,000 livres in debt. The cherry on the cake is his worst enemies, the rascals, have bought his entire debt, have increased the interest, and gave him 8 days to pay off everything. So at this time, le Duc de Lauzun, he inhaled and exhale and remind himself he is an aristocrat, and aristocrats don't worry about such trivial things. At this time, all his friends and family are getting away from him. First, his friend, le Duc de Chartres. No news of le Duc de Chartres, he completely left. Le Duc de Choiseul, his uncle, former minister of Louis XV, he was furious. He didn't want to hear anything of le Duc de Lauzun whatsoever ever again. His father, le Duc de Gontaut, didn't mind, provided he didn't ask him anything. La Maréchale de Luxembourg was furious. She required a complete separation of everything, of all the belongings of her granddaughter Amélie. This was actually a rather positive piece of news in this mess, because he didn't like Amélie, he never wanted to marry her, so at last he would be separated from her. This is what he writes about the way Amélie tried to be nice in this absolute chaos.
Quant à Madame de Lauzun, elle était dans un embarras qui pensa me faire rire 2 ou 3 fois, quoique je n'en eusse guère envie. Elle aurait voulu paraître très sensible et très généreuse, mais elle ne voulut pas que cela pût lui coûter ni l'engager à la moindre chose. Cela gêna beaucoup tout ce qu'elle avait à dire de beau et de touchant. Elle prit donc le parti de se taire et de se coiffer.
At this very critical time, only 2 persons came to the rescue of le Duc de Lauzun. First, a friend, he was not even very close to him, Monsieur de Voyer, who offered him very nicely, very generously, a house and the property and the money coming with the property, so in case he needed a home or a roof above his head. And another former mistress, she came from England, traveled with the boat, with carriages, at once when she heard of his ruin. And this lady, of course, is the unique and the beautiful Lady Barrymore. So it has to be her. She never forgot le Duc de Lauzun, and she offered him all her money, all her fortune, and her life. And isn't it elegant and really classy from this lady who, whatever happened in the past, her friend and former lover is in trouble, is in pain, she's going to come and to help him.
Écoutez, me dit-elle, et ne m'interrompez pas. On vous dit ruinée, je suis riche, jeune, indépendante, je viens vous proposer de partager votre sort et de disposer de ma fortune. Je voyagerai avec vous, où vous voudrez, et pour aussi longtemps que vous voudrez.
He kindly refused her offer, he took her in his arms, he was very moved and very touched that only really 1 person came to his rescue. Well, a friend of him, another friend of him, le Prince de Guéménée, who will later be in huge debt, but not at once, not now. And he proposed to buy some of his property and gave him annuity of 80,000 livres per year, so he had something to survive on. Don't worry. He also had 500,000 livres in capital, and he rented a house at Montrouge, his little house, you remember, where she received his mistresses, his friends. So he still had his little house. Nobody could take that away from him because he rented. But the attitude of Marie-Antoinette changed entirely at this moment. And from this moment, she really stayed away from le Duc de Lauzun. She was polite, but remained cold and pretty indifferent. So he decided, as he had been in mood, with Marie-Antoinette he didn't go anywhere, the big Russian alliance completely failed, he decided to go in England and to study English. He thought it would always be a good thing to be very good in English for his foreign affairs and diplomatic ambition he had. All this English he's going to learn is going to be very helpful for him for the next few years and during the Independence War, as we are going to meet him in the next episode of our Versailles Chronicles. Thank you very much for having joined me today for this episode of the Versailles Chronicles. We will go back to revisit the memoirs of the Duc de Lauzun in a little while. But for now, if you love the 18th century and if you like Marie-Antoinette, just know that my Marie-Antoinette workshop is open right now and is going to close its door on May 20. So you have till May 20 to join if you want to create all her wardrobe. You have 2 dresses, the dresses she wears, a corset, a fan, her hair. You can make her head move. It's really a really fun workshop. It's really a perfect project if you want to take your time and to really play almost like a doll. It's not a doll, though, I have to specify. She doesn't move her arms, she doesn't move all her body, only her head, but it's really a fun workshop. You have all the details under this video, and you can join at learnthemagicofpaper.com. Then the workshop will close its doors till next year. So if you are interested, just know that once enrolled, you keep access to the content, even if you want to start your Marie-Antoinette a little later this summer or during the autumn, you have forever access, no worries. But the workshop will be closed till next spring season, after May 20. You can give a thumbs up if you appreciated what you saw, if you learned a few things, if you enjoyed spending this time maybe knowing a little more about Marie-Antoinette. And you can subscribe if you don't want to miss all the nice videos. I have many videos coming, not only historical ones. I have 1 or 2 more historical ones coming, but I also have other videos and artist live videos coming too. Thank you very much, and I will see you very soon.
The memoirs of the Duc de Lauzun are available translated and in reprints. I own several copies of different versions because there are a few differences, and some passages had been deleted in the early 19th century editions. The memoirs of la Baronne d'Oberkirch are available translated and also in reprint. We will revisit her at some point. The memoirs of Madame Campan can be found translated too. In this book by Frédéric Masson about the Napoleonic era, there was a very interesting chapter about horses races in the late 18th century in France. Chapter 7, 1776-1777. The Queen, for some time past, showed much friendliness towards the Comtesse Jules de Polignac. A pretty face, a gentle and natural air daily increased her favour. It was to her that Monsieur le Duc de Coigny applied to form a party against me. Madame de Gramont joined it with eagerness, and established in that circle as her representative the Baron de Besenval, formerly attached to Monsieur le Duc de Choiseul and very well received by the Queen. The Baron tried to banter me, but bad tone and a lack of propriety are a great disadvantage at court. The Comtesse Jules undertook the same thing, but with much gallantry, consideration, and never with anger. I discouraged her quickly enough. My favour continued the same. The Queen gave me all her confidence and hardly ever permitted me to leave Versailles. My manners were very circumspect. It was with extreme reserve that I lent myself to the preferences that could be noticed. The Queen, on the contrary, seemed to make a display of the favours with which she honoured me and the influence I had over her. Talk was resumed, and it was said loudly at court that I was or would soon be her lover. It seems impossible for my favour to increase. The Queen was fond of high gaming and knew that this was not pleasant to the King. This compelled her to conceal what she played and to choose among a very small number those on whose discretion she counted. I told her that this was very bad and gave occasion for most disagreeable talk about her. I besought her to play in the cabinets of Versailles a game that she might play with everyone, adding that at Madame de Guéménée she might play what she liked. This advice and that of thinking more of the King are the only two I ever gave her. She received them with that grace and that tender preference which accompanied every one of her actions towards me. As I didn't wish to appear to be paying court solely to her, I often hunted with the king, a thing which bored me mortally, and she knew it very well, so that she never failed to hunt on horseback on those days, or to try and meet the hunting party in her carriage. The king always sent me to her and told me to stay there. He appeared to approve of her manners towards me, and there was the most merit in this, as the talk with regard to us had reached him. On that occasion, he had not been satisfied with receiving those who had dared to repeat the matter to him badly, but had at once begun to treat me infinitely better, and to be as polite towards me as his character would allow. He learnt one day during the winter that Monsieur le Comte d'Artois had gone out alone on horseback very early in the morning. This caused him great anxiety, as he feared he might have some quarrel. He was told that I was with him. He greatly astonished all those who were about him by saying very calmly, "If Monsieur de Lauzun is with him, I have no anxiety. Nothing untoward will befall him, and he would have warned the Queen had he foreseen something he could not prevent." Such was my position at the beginning of 1776. The reader will later see the intrigues and annoyances of all sorts which will follow my favour, and I accompanied it about a year before crushing it utterly. A few days after, at a hunt in the Bois de Boulogne, the Queen noticed a very beautiful horse driven by an English huntsman following me. She often spoke to the man, and she asked him if the animal was quiet and if it would be good for a woman. The huntsman replied that he knew of no better, no more beautiful. The Queen told me she wanted it. I told her in a whisper and jestingly that I did not wish to give it to her. She called my huntsman, told him to change for one of hers, and turning to me, "Since you do not wish to give it, I take." The Duc de Coigny approached in time to hear the last words, which scandalized him prodigiously. This is his own expression. I cannot pass in silence a rather amusing adventure which happened to me while I was garrison at Sarre-Louis. There is, at half a league from the city, a chapter of canonesses called Loutres. The abbess was a woman of quality from Germany, and her chapter was generally well composed. There were to be found there a few young and pretty persons. Among them was a conspicuous, tall and beautiful Mademoiselle de Surin, whom the greatest appearance of innocence rendered charming. There was no society at Sarre-Louis. I often went to the chapter, and Mademoiselle de Surin daily increased in my esteem. She showed great preference for me, which in others I should have considered as setting their caps for me. Her knee at the table often encountered mine. She stepped on my toes at every moment, and as soon as we were alone a few instants, embraced me with the greatest friendship. I had a great mind to take advantage of it. I was stopped by the manner in which the abbess, Madame de Wartensleben, continually spoke of the innocence of Mademoiselle de Surin and of the purity of her heart. It seemed that it would be a horrible thing for me to take advantage of the inexperience of a young girl of quality and to risk ruining her. I therefore continued to be circumspect. I surrendered without scruple to the allurements of a certain little Madame Duprel, married at Luxembourg, who was homely but amiable and gay. I learned in the month of October, on leaving Sarre-Louis, that 5 or 6 officers of my regiment had been intimate with the innocent Mademoiselle de Surin, and that she had not feared to leave evidence of this in their hands